Well, that was quick. Joe Gibbs Racing already reveals a new crew chief for Martin Truex Jr. next year. An old sponsor returns to the Clash, and Spencer Boyd joins today's episode. We have a very full show ahead. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Very full show today. A NASCAR Truck Series driver, Spencer Boyd. I had the pleasure of talking to him earlier this morning, so I'll play that interview here in just a few moments. Talk to him a lot about his last season, also a lot about some of the trending topics in NASCAR. Going to be some interesting insight over there for sure. But before I get to that interview, I want to talk about a new sponsor to the Clash. Busch Beer is back to sponsor the Daytona Clash. You know, the race that happens a week before the Daytona 500, where traditionally, all the pole award winners from the year earlier will compete in a, 75 lap race around Daytona. In recent years, they've amended it to add playoff drivers and past winner, a bunch of other little things that allow certain drivers to race in it. But Busch Beer, who had been the sponsor of the Clash from 1979 through, 1997, I think? And then another Busch brand, Budweiser was the sponsor until 2011, but after just a few-year hiatus where, we had, the Sprint Unlimited, we had some other sponsors in there, Busch is back, and in 2020, we're bringing back the Busch Class. They revealed the logo. Look at this thing. It's a throwback. This is a sweet logo right here. Super cool to see them jumping back on board sponsoring this race. This race, especially after last year, was in desperate need of some sort of, revitalization. Some new energy, you might say, especially after the 2019 Clash was just laughable. It was probably the worst race of the 2019 season. I remember, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, that a lot of people around the sport, not just fans, but even high-profile media members were calling into question whether or not the Clash should even exist anymore after this year's race. A lot of people were calling for it to basically be taken off the schedule. That was less than a year ago, so the Clash, needless to say, the Bud Shootout, however you remember it, the Busch Clash, however you remember it being called, they just desperately needed some new energy. And Busch coming back after a little bit of a hiatus here, renaming it the Busch Class, or bringing back the old name of the Busch Class with the cool-looking throwback logo. Hopefully that revitalizes this race a little bit. I mean, the Super Speedway package we saw in 2019 was really racy, really fun, so hopefully this is a good race. I always thought of this as kind of like a bonus all-star race, really. It's just a fun way to kind of show off the new paint teams, the new drivers in new places. It was always fun to kind of have that be your first glimpse into what the 2020 season might look like and, all that type of stuff. So I'm excited for the Busch Clash. I'm glad that they're back on as a sponsor again. I love the nostalgia feel behind this one, and hopefully it's a better race than 2019. I feel like anything is better than a better race than what we saw in 2019. Still got some other news to talk about. Before I get to that, let's cut to Spencer Boyd, NASCAR Truck Series driver, Talladega winner from this past fall. I had the pleasure of speaking to him earlier this morning. Let's go ahead and cut to that right now. Spencer Boyd joins Out of the Groove. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Out of the Groove. Today, I have the great pleasure of being joined by Spencer Boyd, driver in the NASCAR Truck Series. How's it going today, man? Thanks for taking some time out of your off-season, I guess, to still do racing stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good, getting over being sick. Typical East Coast weather.
Yeah, well, big thank you to MGP Caliper Covers for helping set this interview up. I'm always interested to hear about how sponsors get into NASCAR and how they build relationships with drivers. So I know they have a deal with you going on. How did MGP Caliper Covers get interested in NASCAR? How did they get interested in sponsoring you, man? How'd that relationship start?
Yeah, so if you followed Spencer Boyd's career, it takes a lot of partners to make this happen. And a lot of people know I do all my own marketing. I went to college for marketing, and I look for companies that aren't in the sport. Some people are always looking at other people's sponsors and things like that. Myself, I'm always looking at companies that I feel would be a good fit. The Spencer Boyd brand is something I'm pretty proud of as far as, American-made products, veteran-owned companies. And I love cars. So I came across the MGP Caliper Covers. They're American-made, right in San Diego. So that stood out to me. Just a quick phone call and chatted with them about the benefits of NASCAR and what we can do social media wise and things like that. And it's been a match made in heaven, and they love NASCAR, and they're doing a lot on their side to promote me and my custom caliper covers. And it's been a great relationship.
Yeah, always cool to hear stories of new sponsors kind of being interested or being introduced to NASCAR and getting into NASCAR. That's always good to hear. Now, talking about this past season for you, this was obviously a huge moment for you a few months ago back at Talladega. Got that for your first ever Truck Series win. I was there at that race in person, and I remember it was chaotic on pit road afterwards, figuring out who won, what did we just see, what happened. I want to hear from your perspective from the driver's seat. When you were going through that trial for the first time, you saw the leaders come together a little bit. What was going through your head at the end of that race?
Yeah, so with one to go, I was riding in the bottom, in the bottom lane in 10th, and I'm like, okay, I need some stuff to happen here. I've seen Kaz Gralla win a race when the seas parted at Daytona, so I'm like, hey, you never know what can happen. I just need to keep filling every hole here and do the best I can and be in position. Well, next thing you know, I'm in third coming through the tri-oval, and I saw those guys get together, and I'm like, man, they're going below the line, and it's so hard to see. Like, you see the truck in front of you, but the truck in front of them, it's hard to see through the window and things. So I saw them jet low, and I'm like, okay, I'm going high, and hopefully someone can come push me. And I saw, like, out of the rear view, the 24 getting a run. So I jumped to the outside, took the run from him, and propelled us to second. I felt like that was a really smart move, and, I was happy with second. And I heard from the spotter that there was some complications with them going below the line. I didn't know how far they went below the line. I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm happy with second. Sauter's lucky, man, got that win. He's out there celebrating. And then they tell my one of my crew members that I won the race. I'm freaking out. It was super exciting. I think about it every day, and I just feel real fortunate that the little guy got a win there.
Yeah, no, that was definitely exciting to see. And the uproar in the crowd. I mean, at a truck series race, I'm used to hearing, I went to Bristol this year, the crowd goes crazy. There's 100,000 people there, but at a truck series race, you could audibly hear how excited or how vocal the crowd was when the ruling came down, and watching all the burnouts. I got 2 burnouts for the price of 1, so I think the fans came out ahead there, honestly. How'd you celebrate that win? Anything crazy? Did you guys go out, do anything? I like to know how drivers celebrate big wins like that.
Yeah, so you spend your whole life thinking about, winning your first race in NASCAR and how you're going to celebrate and you're going to do something cool. I had something in mind to do in Victory Lane, and I just slipped my mind. I didn't do it. I'm like, well, there goes that tradition, but someone else would be thinking of that one. But it was pretty fun. Hung out with my sponsors. A lot of people know that Alabama Roofing Professionals came on pretty late to put that deal together, and to go win for them was awesome. So we went to a nice steak place, enjoyed some food, and I had the cup race the next day, so nothing too crazy for me. I even skipped the Riley Green VIP concert.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were running double duty that week. That must have been one of those where, like, oh man, just want to spend all night, focus on this win, focus on this celebration, and you got work in the morning. It's like when something great happens on Sunday night, and you got to get up Monday morning and go to work. You don't have enough time to soak it all in the moment. But that's funny. That's pretty cool. So I know it's the middle of the NASCAR offseason right now. I know NASCAR is well known for how long, or you could say maybe infamous for how long grueling its regular season or its overall season can be. It's got a very short offseason. I want to know from a driver like you, how do you spend your offseason? Is it still really busy? Are you able to really find any downtime, or what's it like from a driver's perspective spending these handful of months y'all get?
Yeah, so the season is pretty long. This is my 4th season in NASCAR. Just finishing up my 2nd full time. So, these months, it's just as busy as normal, putting your partnerships together for next year and who you're going to drive for and what you got going on. So it's extremely busy, but it's fun to enjoy the holidays with friends and family. And it's nice to not be going to the racetrack. I know that sounds weird to say because, a million people would trade their job to be a race car driver, but it's nice to have a little change of pace. I went hunting with some veterans, did the SEMA show right before the end of the season. I was just out in Vegas for the NFR rodeo with Neutrina and Record Rack with one of my sponsors. So this time of year, I get to go do a lot of expos, a lot of handshaking. It's a lot of fun. It's good content for social media. People get to see that I'm more than just a steering wheel holder and turning left. Everyone has those jokes, but this sport, it takes a lot out of you, but it's so much fun, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Definitely. And talking about schedule stuff, is that something you think NASCAR should address going forward? Would you like to see, I know it's been a topic of conversation, people shortening the schedule perhaps, trying to get the season over by like September? I know like Trucks and Xfinity have shorter, they don't run as many races, but they still end in the middle of November. I don't know. Where do you come down on that? Would you like to see NASCAR maybe try to shorten the actual length of time of their season, or how do you feel about that argument?
Yeah, it's tough to say because in the middle of the season, you're like, man, we could go for a week break, and it's not really for yourself. It's more for your guys. Being the driver, you're in the limelight. There's a lot of fun things about going to the racetrack and signing autographs and getting to go fast, and you'd do it 7 days a week if you could. But for the betterment of the team, you're looking at those crew guys that are away from their friends and family, and working hard. And sometimes, you tear up some stuff in a matter of a month. You need a little break to just kind of rebound and rebuild and make sure you're not pulling out your bad trucks, and you can keep fixing the good ones and things like that. So when you're on a smaller team, those breaks, 1 week off every 3 or 4 weeks help. But the Cup level, man, I think you got to keep it intense. You got to keep the fans coming to the racetrack every weekend, keep it on TV as much as possible. I wish it went year-round, to be honest. It'd probably make my job tougher, but I love being at the racetrack and learning and building on that craft. But I hear they may shorten it, and we'll take it as they give it for sure. There's so much crazy stuff going on with that Cup car for 2021 and pit crew changes possibly for Truck and Xfinity. But how many other sports do you see make changes to help cost or help the fans? NASCAR, I'm not going to say they always make the right decision, but it's cool that they're willing to alter their sport, change the rules, change things to try and make it a better product. And I feel really fortunate to be a part of that.
Yeah, it does sound like they're doing a fairly good job, especially recently, of trying to listen to not just the fans, but they also do have to listen to their partners and teams and kind of balance all of that and figure out what works best for everyone. I think that's a tough job they have, but I think especially lately, I think they've done a fairly good job with the cards they've been dealt. You kind of led into I want my next topic. I want to talk to you about a few just top trending topic. Get your opinions, a driver's perspective on some of the big news around NASCAR these days. You kind of hinted at it a minute ago. The next gen car. I know. Still a year away, Cup Series car and everything, but from the couple of tests we've seen, NASCAR has been a little more high profile about it lately. Do you like what you're seeing? Dislike what you're seeing? What are some of the most notable things you've seen on the next gen car so far?
Yeah, well, I'm real close with my pit crew guys, and I have a lot of fun with those guys. So seeing the one lug nut is different. I'm used to that sound of 5 on, 5 off. That's so NASCAR. And IndyCar and F1 are more the one lug nut. So that's going to be interesting to see. I haven't seen the hydraulic jacks that they're talking about that you see online that people are mentioning. I don't even know if that's a real possibility, but, that could change things up, taking the jack man out. So that's interesting to see. I think the cars look cool. I really do. And shooting flames out of the left and right side is interesting, but I wonder about the carbon monoxide and things like that as a driver, until you experience that, that's a pretty terrible thing, especially in Richmond in a Cup car. I've been there, done that. So I've been really fortunate to drive a lot of different race cars, and those Cup cars right now are pretty on edge and pretty crazy, even though they're low horsepower. So it's going to be interesting to see with independent rear suspension how different and on edge these 2021 cars are.
Yeah, I think that'll be one of the most interesting things to look at as well, to see how much edgier they get because of some of those changes like that. But that's interesting perspective. I also want to hear what you have to think about Cole Pern's sudden retirement announcement from Joe Gibbs Racing from NASCAR, I guess. How do you feel like losing a guy like Cole Pern? How does that affect a team like Joe Gibbs Racing, you think?
Oh, man, I think that's huge. That's a big, issue, I would say. Having faith in your crew chief and, being friends. And, look, Cole and Martin have had amazing success for, I don't know, half a decade here, right? 5, 6 strong years. So I'm sure Martin's going, am I going to, obviously he's a great driver, but he's going to question, is the new guy ready? Is he going to stay calm? Are we going to have conflict? But just like Johnson and Knaus, things run their time too. So they looked extremely competitive this year, and they were competing for a championship. So I'd say it wasn't because of that. I'm sure it truly is him taking a step back for family and things like that. But it hurts the team. He's a big leader, and he's a really good, value at Joe Gibbs. So it'd be interesting to see who steps up. I heard that they released that, but I don't know the name and what his accolades are. But it'd be interesting. Martin's going to drive his butt off, and he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, for sure. I think they announced yesterday, yeah, it's good. They're promoting the lead engineer from the team last year is going to be the new crew chief. So promoting from within, I guess. Who knows if that's going to lead to success. With Hendrick this last year, they promoted Kevin Mendring, but it didn't really help that 48 car that much this year. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking some time out of your off season, I guess, to still over here and come over here and do racing things. We really appreciate it. And a big thank you to MGP Caliper Covers again for helping set this up. Thanks for coming on, man. Have a happy holidays.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Again, a big thank you to Spencer Boyd for coming on, and a big thank you to MGP Caliper Covers for helping set that interview up. Go check them out. Go check out their website. I'll put a link to it down in the description. They make a really cool product, and it's really cool to see them supporting one of the most genuine drivers I've had the pleasure of meeting so far in NASCAR. So really cool of them. Go check them out. Thanks to them for helping set that interview up. All right, so last bit of news I want to talk about in this episode. You heard me and Spencer talk about it briefly towards the end of that interview there. But Martin Truex Jr., he has a new crew chief for 2020. Joe Gibbs Racing did not waste too much time selecting a replacement for Cole Pern. James Small, who was the lead engineer on that 19 car last year, he will be basically being promoted into the role of crew chief for Truex in 2020. A little background on James Small. He's 36 years old, so around the same age Cole Pern is. Cole Pern's 37, so very similar in age to what Truex worked with last year. James Small is from Australia, from Melbourne, Australia, actually. He actually has a lot of background working with Australian V8 supercars. He came over to America to work in NASCAR in 2014. He spent some time with RCR, spent some time over at Furniture Row Racing, where he worked with both Eric Jones' 77 car and Martin Truex Jr.'s 78 car during their championship season. In fact, in 2017, James Small actually filled in as Eric Jones' crew chief for 2 races. He finished 3rd at Michigan, and they finished 10th at Watkins Glen. That was Eric Jones' rookie season, so pretty good start to James Small's crew chiefing career. Interesting to hear Joe Gibbs Racing promoting from within here. Obviously, Toyota has a lot of talent in their shops, so it makes sense, but it is interesting that they didn't go out and try to get like a really big free agent crew chief. Not that there really are that many of those on the market right now, but to go with a guy that's pretty much unknown. Nobody really knows who James Small is. The average fan does not know that name until now. Going forward, we'll see what the performance looks like in 2020. Because if you look at Joe Gibbs Racing's crew chief lineup next year, what once was extremely stout and extremely impressive, now, I don't know, maybe has a couple gaps. You still have Adam Stevens over there on the 18, who's really good. Chris Gabehart on the 11, who had an incredible season this year. Then you got Chris Gale on the 20, who I don't really know what to think of Chris Gale just yet. And now you have James Small on the 19. That's a big drop-off from Cole Pern to James Small. James Small, I'm sure, is going to do just fine. I'm sure that 19 team's still going to be very competitive. But I said this last week, whoever replaces Cole Pern is going to have big shoes to fill, and that is indeed the case. Now, replacing Small as the lead engineer on the 19 car is Jeff Curtis. He also worked with Truex over at Furniture Row Racing, so they still have some history together. So I tend to think Truex and everyone, they're going to get along just fine. I think as far as communication goes, as far as like a bond being formed between the two, I think Truex and James Small and all these guys are going to get along just fine. The question really is, does Small have the experience to take the feedback Truex gives him and really put out the best possible product on the racetrack? Cole Pern, when he showed up in 2015, we saw an immediate turnaround in Truex's performance. I don't know, now that Cole Pern's gone, will there be a drop-off? Will there be significance? Will it be noticeable? That remains to be seen, but I would definitely be a little bit concerned. As you heard Spencer Boyd say in that interview, when you lose a guy of the caliber of Cole Pern, you're going to feel it as an organization, just a little bit. So we'll see what happens with that 19 car. They're still going to make the playoffs, still going to win probably a few races next year. Will they be the top championship contender, though? Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see, though. I'm gonna reserve judgment to at least see what they look like at speed weeks, see if the car at least still goes fast, which it probably will. Anyway, y'all, that's the news. Thanks again to Spencer Boyd for coming on this show, talking to us here on today's episode, but that's all I got. I know this is a long one, busy episode. Hope you guys had a great week. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters, as always. Mike Waffles, Michael Harrison, at you with the stars, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Jason R. Long, Isaac Dennis, and Nika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Peppy Lush, Jeremy Conklin, Emilio Garcia, Joey DiMancino, Sky Racing Forum, Bryce Schumacher, Bryce Starcher, Colton Austin, Scott McNew, Emmanuel Castillo, Tim Shingen, and the rest of these incredible Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this show without the support I get from each and every single one of you every single month, so thank you guys for your continued support of Out of the Group. Really means a lot. Still working on some other videos. I've been busy this week, but expect some other stuff very, very soon, and as big news stories continue to come out, we will still be here talking about them, so stay tuned for all that. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Have a good one, everyone.